In the famous Phaedrus dialogue, Socrates speaks of how the Egyptian gods brought writing to humankind. And one of the characters in this little story he told of, said, "You think you've done a good thing by bringing this wonderful technology of the gods to human beings, but in fact, you've made them more stupid because they now no longer need to remember things and hence won't remember them anymore." In The Matrix, uh, Agent Smith, when speaking to Morpheus, says that this is no longer your world, it's our world. Now, it became our world once we began doing the thinking for you. And I had my own little run-in with technology doing the thinking for me today. I was driving down the I-5 from basically San Francisco towards LA, and I had plugged in the address in my GPS. It's a trucking GPS. It's a pretty good Rand McNally piece of equipment, one of the higher end ones out there. And blindly following it, I took this road called Lockwood Valley Road after a few other um, highways off the 5 sort of east. I'm just assuming it was a good route to go. It took me through some of the narrowest, rockiest, snowy mountain passes in cattle country you could imagine. Around 10-mile-an-hour switchbacks on a road that my truck could barely fit in on one lane, and it had like 270-degree turns, and well, not quite that much. It was like what would you say, 150-degree turns, not full circles or everything. Um, so, and as I was going through these switchbacks, coming around the first curve that was you couldn't take at 55 miles an hour, at about 55 miles an hour, and being like, dear God, um, this is going to be a serious um, trial here. The words of my trainer came back to me saying, "Oh, never trust your GPS," and I was like, it's a piece of technology. It's what it's for." And he's absolutely right. You don't trust your GPS because ultimately the GPS doesn't pay for the price of your its own failure. You do. And the GPS is just a machine doing what it's been programmed to do. It doesn't necessarily update all the time, and the people who programmed it don't necessarily know um, all the intricacies and challenges of what it is that you're doing and the requirements that you need. You have to think for yourself. You have to um, have the ability to think for yourself. And one of the things I hear from some of the older truck drivers who've been out here is like a post-implementation complaint by Socrates on the effective writing. It's, oh, people can't remember anything anymore. These old truck drivers who, back when they used atlases, if they had them, sometimes the trucking roadmaps weren't the most up-to-date things ever, and they had to rely on sign reading, on intuition, and navigating by uh, actually thinking. And they see these new drivers, my age, maybe even a little bit older, who are completely helpless and hopeless and terrified without their GPS to help them out. Now, this isn't just true of GPSs, obviously. This is true of, um, well, virtually everything in our society. It's true of automatic cars as opposed to manuals. It's true of dishwashers. How many people are really capable of washing dishes? It seems like an easy enough task, but a lot of people look at a stack of dishes and it's overwhelming to them. This may be a surprise to some people who wash their dishes regularly. What's so difficult about that? Well, some people aren't so used to it. All kinds of things that people have become dependent upon technology for, and when that technology fails them or proves to be inadequate, they feel lost and helpless. And this um, creates a sort of dependent relationship between the people on their technology. And I think a general feeling of helplessness that both Matthew Crawford and Robert Pirsig, speaking of Phaedrus, talk about in their respective books on the matter. Shop Classes, Soulcraft, and Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Both excellent books worth reading. But technology is not the problem, obviously. It's not that, like, we should never have GPSs. They're extraordinarily useful devices. Uh, but there should be some way of living in a way where you're utilizing technology but not becoming so dependent upon it that you're helpless without it, and so paralyzed by a fear of the failure of the technology that you've become so dependent upon. So I think a good habit to get into, and I've been doing this with certain foods for a while, um, but I think it might be good for technology too, is to get in the habit of every once in a while not allowing yourself certain technological advantages. Maybe try just once a week, one day a week. Go without the internet for a day. Try make it Sunday. Make it the secular Sabbath. No internet on Sundays, or I'm going to wash the dishes by hand. It's an old Stoic trick to help not just your appreciation for the technology, because that's also what it does when you're doing things by hand. It really helps you appreciate just how wonderful the technology is, but also understand, um, in some ways, how to do things on your own without technology and to get along without it. Um, I think it will help you think better. It'll help you be more resilient and more confident in your resilience because you learn ways of living without the technology if it fails. And it can be kind of a fun challenge too. And it can keep you off of some roads you'd rather not be on, metaphorically and literally.